60th anniversary class of 51 and the 65th anniversary class of 46. Congratulations, all of you. Fantastic. Celebrating his 70th anniversary from the class of 41 is Clint Gass from Greencastle, Indiana. All right. Celebrating his 68th anniversary is Emeritus Professor of Religion, Bernie Erling. Where's Bernie? All right. And celebrating their 72nd anniversary are Carl and Miriam Peterson Manfred, class of 39. Not to be undone by all of these youngsters. Celebrating her 78th anniversary is St. Peter resident Ruth Snyder Larson, class of 33.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Congratulations to you all, that's fantastic. Tomorrow at commencement, the class of 2011, quite a diversity in classes here we've got, that's great. Will graduate and become members of the Alumni Association, and we congratulate them and look forward to their lifelong engagement with our college. Philip Helt, a member of the class of 2011, has been chosen by a committee of faculty, staff, and students to speak at tomorrow's commencement ceremony. And he's with us tonight to give a brief summary of his message to his classmates that he's going to give tomorrow. Helt's a native of Gladstone, Missouri, is a 4-year member of the Gustavus forensics team. That team's developed into one of the premier programs of all colleges and universities. Individually, he was named to the 2011 All-American team. He's a member of 4 honor societies, was the recipient of 2010 Paul Magnuson Award for Service and Leadership and the 2011 John Brown Award for Outstanding Achievement in Communications Studies. After graduating from Gustavus, Phil plans to return to his home state of Missouri and to serve in the Teach for America program in Kansas City. How fantastic is that? So please welcome Phil Helt.
Thank you so much and good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. Like you said, my name is Phil Helt and I'm from Gladstone, Missouri. My parents are over there, Michael and Nancy. They drove 8 hours to be here with me today, so please remember that. They literally got to my dorm and I'm like, well, it's time to go to dinner. So, hi, we'll catch up over dinner. And then last but not least, I also have to recognize my sister Megan. She's a junior. Gustavus could be an option for her. And I really do love her, so I don't show that enough. So thank you for her being here today. But I am so excited to be here today because I love talking about Gustavus. I mean, we're all Gusties, who doesn't love talking about our home here on the Hill. I love being able to talk with alumni. For the past several years, I've actually worked on behalf of the Gustavus Annual Fund, working with Gus Lincoln. I've probably called many of you, but I've got to hear your stories, and I love hearing about your stories. I love seeing you come back to the Hill, and that really does inspire me to hopefully to be an engaged alum, just like many of you are in this room. And I want to thank you for that, because without your support, there is no Gustavus. Why I love Gustavus is for really 3 different reasons, and the first of which is opportunity. I think when you think of a Gustie, I think what comes to mind is an over-involved Gustie, and I think that's a good thing. Gustavus offers so much. One of my professors called it kind of like a buffet. There's so much, you want to sample everything, and at the end you have a huge full plate, but you have something that you just absolutely love. You know, my time here at Gustavus, I've been involved with the forensics team, as was mentionedly stated, and what's so exciting about that is we are 10th in the nation. There are no divisions in forensics. The other 9 schools that are in the top 10 in the nation are all Division I institutions. And we have been 10th in the nation for 2 years in a row, to top 20 in the nation for the last 5 years. And that's something to be really proud of, to think that a small team from a small liberal arts college in St. Peter, Minnesota can compete with the big dogs. We compete against Arizona State University, Northwestern University, University of Nebraska-Lincoln. We beat them. And so, but that's something exciting. Along with my time in... Along my time in forensics, I've been a part of Big Partner, Little Partner, Gap TV, Student Senate, and I just love the opportunities that Gustavus allows students to participate in, to be involved as much as they can. The second thing that I love about Gustavus is the engagement and the involvement from the faculty. I feel that I don't have just professors, I have mentors, I have role models, and more importantly, I have best friends. I have faculty that are willing to drive me to the airport at 4 in the morning to catch a 6:30 flight. I have faculty that I wasn't able to go home for Easter and they had me over for dinner. I had a faculty, Professor Martin Lang, who suffered with me while watching Pirates of the Caribbean 4 in theaters. If you haven't seen it, don't see it. But what I love about that is the faculty want to get to know you, not just in the classroom, but out of the classroom. And that is something that I think Gustavus holds so dear to itself, is that we have committed, involved, and engaged faculty who are the students' best friends. There's no other way to say that. And I think the last part that I love about Gustavus is the sense of community. That's why you're here today, because you love that sense of community. If something ever happens on campus, students get involved. Faculty care, and you really feel like you have a family here. And that no matter what happens, I feel like that I'll be able to come back to the Hill and be welcomed. And so I love Gustavus because of opportunity, because of engagement, and because of community. So like was stated, tomorrow I get to give a speech, and I'm going to give you kind of a small preview of that speech, which is actually more than anybody else has on this campus. People always ask me, what are you going to talk about tomorrow? I'm like, I'm not telling you. But what I'm going to talk about is, when we look around the world around us today, we turn on the nightly news, we read the local newspaper, dare I even say watch Jon Stewart, we see that there is a local, a national, and a global community that's asking for help. You see suffering, you see war, you see recession, and you have people that believe that they have been forgotten. The Rasmussen report polling from March 25th, 2011 says that 69% of Americans believe the country is on the wrong track. And for a lot of Americans, unfortunately, the future doesn't look too great. It looks bleak, and it looks dim. But what I think is going to happen is that the change that people want is coming from Gustavus this very year. The change people want is the Gustavus class of 2011. And when I look back on my 4 years here at Gustavus, I have seen classmates that are committed and involved to try to make a difference. We have students that are relentless. They'll see a problem, they work to fix it, and the result, not only do we have change, but we also have things to be proud of. To kind of give you a small snippet of what some of my classmates have done the past 4 years. This spring break, 20 students gave up their spring breaks, and they traveled to Florida, South Carolina, and Texas for Habitat for Humanity. And they built, affordable, quality homes for low-income families, but more importantly, they reestablished community and relationships and compassion. They saw there was a need for a problem, they went out and fixed it, and what we had was change. In this very room, in the fall, we have the ladies of Delta Phi Omega sorority. They held a breast cancer benefit. It's something that's been very dear to their hearts, and this year they single-handedly raised $16,000 to find a cure. They saw something that needs to be fixed, they went out and did it, and they had change. I think of even, recently when our campus was shattered by attempted sexual assaults, and student leaders said something has to happen. So in the span of 3 days, leaders from Impact, the Women's Awareness Center, and Sigma Alpha Epsilon Fraternity gathered together and sponsored Take Back the Night in Christ Chapel, and had over 500 members of our community take a stand and say something has to be done. That's change. It's when I look at what my classmates have done these past 4 years that I know we don't have to wait anymore, because change is always possible. Because the Gustavus class of 2011 is committed, it's driven, it's compassionate. I guarantee you that if you let us take our turn at the wheel, you're going to see change. And you're going to have change that you really can't believe in. So that's just a snippet of what I will be talking about tomorrow in my class. I'm excited for this opportunity, because I really believe that our class has the capability to truly change the world for the better. So, thank you so much.
you like that energy? His family's got to be really proud. Fantastic. Let's give him another round of applause. I think they should have a turn at the helm. That sounds really great. Chance behind the wheel. The Alumni Banquet is a time to celebrate our Gustavus experience and relationship with the college, and especially honor alumni who have brought exceptional honor to their alma mater. We recognize that significant and exceptional acts of excellence, leadership, and service are being accomplished by many of our alum. Gustavus alum are living lives of leadership and service, and when you read about it, we get to see a lot of this with the Alumni Board. It would just amaze you. We begin with the first acknowledgement with the First Decade Awards. And I ask for all of you to think about what you accomplished in your first 10 years after Gustavus or wherever it is that you went. And when you look at some of the nominations that we saw and that we reviewed, it's absolutely spectacular to imagine what some of these individuals have accomplished in just 10 years. Imagine what they'll accomplish with the rest of their careers. So this was first presented in 1968. The First Decade Award was established to recognize one male and one female for early professional achievement by graduates of the 10th anniversary class. Criteria appropriate to selection includes the difficulty of accomplishment, quality, creativity, and distinctiveness of performance, recognition by professional peers, and lasting contribution with the work that they've done to the world of ideas and affairs. So for our male presenting, Jonathan Poole, our male recipient of the First Decade Award is Roland Torstensen, Emeritus Professor of Scandinavian Studies. Roland, please come here.
I have 4 pockets with different introductions, and I think I'll take the green one today, the safe one. Jonathan, it's great to have you back on campus, you and Aaron. It's a great honor for me to introduce you, and a great pleasure. Part 1, some cold hard facts about Jonathan. It's been 10 years since Jonathan graduated. He spent most of those years as a special agent in the Diplomatic Security Service of the U.S. Department of State. Many of those years, Jonathan and his wife Erin had been living abroad. In 2004 and 2005, Jonathan was on special assignment to the Protective Security Detail of the U.S. Secretary of State and to the U.S. Consulate General in Daman, Saudi Arabia. From 06 to 09, he served this country, as a vice consul and special investigator in St. Petersburg, Russia, followed by 2 years as assistant security attaché at the U.S. Embassy in Tripoli, Libya, once a relatively quiet place. And now, Aaron and Jonathan live in Washington, D.C., where Jonathan serves as a special agent for the Department of Defense with assignments, the specifics of which only he and a few other people know. During his years with the Department of State, Jonathan has received 4 meritorious honor awards and 2 Benjamin Franklin awards. Part 2. Thinking about Jonathan. Is there any logic behind a trajectory in which an 18-year-old student from Philadelphia comes to a college in the Middle West and then ends up as a special agent for the U.S. government, working in different countries and being trusted more by his superiors after each new assignment? I'm sure there's plenty of logic, but likely there have also been some leaps of faith. When I met Jonathan in 1997, I met a young man who was already extraordinary. He was more focused than most other first-year students, more curious, better read. Perhaps some students thought of him as a nerd at first. His future wife included, I understand. But a likable, nice nerd. Having been a book nerd myself in my teens, Jonathan seemed like a soulmate and a godsend. For me, as a teacher, there was no need to pull teeth with Jonathan. He would always have answers or questions, and what was equally important, he knew how to engage and activate other students. Polyglot is the first part of Jonathan's email address. I've always admired polyglots, speakers of many languages, especially those who combine their love for learning languages with a curiosity about the countries that the languages represent. When Jonathan came to Gustavus, he had already spent a year in Finland and knew Finnish. He had also studied Russian, which he continued to study at Gustavus, and then, of course, had to perfect while he and Aaron lived in St. Petersburg. At Gustavus, he learned a real world language, Swedish. And in Libya and other places in the Arab world, he and Aaron started studying Arabic. A polyglot, Jonathan is, a polyhister as well. In his job, reliable sources tell me, he uses his understanding of liberal arts and his direct experiences as a young foreigner in foreign countries to help those of his superiors who are stuck in a more singular view to think of other possibilities. Polyglot, polyhister, big words to describe a man 10 years out of college perhaps. Big words, but true words. Jonathan moves fast. By contrast, his introducer became an American citizen only very recently, after he had been living in this country for 44 years. Thank you, Jonathan, for what you're doing for this country, our country. And I will not ask you for specifics about your work in the U.S. Department of Defense. That's my leap of faith. Jeff, I present Jonathan Poole, the first decade award.
As Roland mentioned, I not only got a great education here at Gustavus, but I met my future wife here. And for the past 10 years, I've been telling my wife that the best thing about Gustavus was the fact that I met her here. That would make for a short speech. So I'm going to have to modify that statement just a little bit. This is an unexpected honor, to say the least. And I'm very humbled to receive it. I'm very happy to accept it. I have to thank Roland, along with Professors Dennis Cernkovich, Roger McKnight, and Mark Braun, who were a constant source of enlightenment and encouragement for me. Their dedication to teaching and mentoring my classmates and me not only transformed us from adolescents into adults, but it set us firmly on the path of lifelong learning. And I also have to thank my wife, Erin, for her steadfast support and for sharing the hardships of life abroad. She's moved with me 6 times for over 18,000 miles in the last 10 years. Thank you. My first decade, as it were, has been marked by an ever-growing appreciation for the education I received here at Gustavus. When you're still a student, the ways in which this college enrich you remain somewhat abstract, but they quickly become tangible in the face of adult life's hard realities. And as you can imagine, this past decade has been one of hard realities for the men and women of the U.S. Foreign Service, and in particular, the men and women of the Diplomatic Security Service. Since the Foreign Service was founded formally in 1924, American diplomats have served in some of the world's most dangerous regions. They are no strangers to the crossfire. But in this decade, when they often serve alongside U.S. troops, and the lines between war and diplomacy become blurred, they find themselves not just in the crossfire, but in the crosshairs. Their protection, and the protection of America's 265 embassies and consulates abroad, occupies the efforts of over 2,000 diplomatic security special agents, and I'm proud to be one of them. My success as a special agent is directly attributable to the skills I learned here at Gustavus. Providing true security for the diplomatic process is not a question of fast driving or straight shooting. It's a question of thinking critically, analyzing complex information quickly, and communicating effectively across cultural, organizational, and linguistic barriers. The rigorous academic environment here, with professors who set high standards and always expected my best work, has prepared me for the demands of U.S. ambassadors who expect no less. In fact, on my very first day on the job, I was given the Foreign Service Institute's dreaded language proficiency exams. And I passed the exams in Swedish and Russian based solely on the instruction I received here at Gustavus. I passed the exam in Finnish based primarily because I spent a junior year abroad there that was only possible as part of Gustavus's robust study abroad program. There are several Gustavus graduates currently in the Foreign Service, and at least one other graduate in the Diplomatic Security Service. We could definitely use more. Those students at Gustavus who take to heart the college's core values, especially those values of excellence, justice, and service, are ideally suited to this profession. In the meantime, however, it will continue to be my honor to show what a Gustie can do in this realm of public service. Thank you very much.
How great is that, huh? Now, presenting Kirsten Cullen Sharma as female recipient of the First Decade Award is Annie Docken-Stroop, class of 2001. Annie's a resident in Savage, Minnesota, and is a guidance counselor at Como Park Senior High School in St. Paul. Annie, could you join us? Great.
I am very honored to introduce you to Kirsten Sharma, this year's female recipient of the Decade Award. I cannot imagine a more deserving individual than Kirsten. While trying to think of someone to nominate for this prestigious award, her name immediately jumped to me. She has successfully accomplished more in these past 10 years than I could dream of achieving in a lifetime. It all began with her achieving a double major here at Gustavus in psychology and biology. Her classes, professors, and experiences at Gustavus helped guide her to identify her career interests and led her to Pacific University for graduate school, where she ultimately earned a Doctor of Clinical Psychology degree. While in grad school, she was the Regional Advocacy Coordinator for the American Psychological Association of Graduate Students, which helped her earn Excellence in Campus and State Leadership Awards. Additionally, she received the Human Diversity Service Scholarship. Upon receiving her doctorate, she undertook a 2-year pediatric neuropsychology postdoctoral fellowship at the New York University Child Study Center. While there, she developed expertise in neurocognitive development in young children and evidence-based interventions for parents and teachers that aimed to reduce behavior problems and academic underachievement. Kirsten has contributed to 7 publications, mostly in scholarly journals, and has participated in 18 professional presentations at various conferences around the world. Furthermore, she has held state and national advocacy positions with the American Psychological Association. More recently, she has also joined the Institute of Prevention Science, where she has taken a lead role in developing a training protocol. As a clinical assistant professor at the NYU Langone Medical Center, Kirsten is currently on a team that is developing, evaluating, and implementing interventions for young children at risk for behavioral and school problems. A few of her other titles include a pediatric neuropsychologist and a clinical director of the Parent Core program. Kirsten is highly passionate about what she does and always gives 110%. She is well on her way to an already successful research career in implementation science. Besides her astounding professional accomplishments, I can attest that Kirsten is one of the most humble, genuine, and kindest people I have ever met. I am proud to call her a friend. Jeff, I present Kirsten Cullen Sharma for the Decade Award.
Hi, good evening. Thanks, Annie. Really appreciate all those wonderful comments. Feels very great to hear and just to reflect back on all of the things that I have been able to do over the 10 years and to hear you sequence all those things and put that into words. Thank you so much. I also want to thank Gustavus and the Alumni Association for giving me this award. I also feel very humble and honored to receive this award. And I'm very proud of our Alumni Association for recognizing alumni for all of the accomplishments and continuing this on every single year. I know that you're recognizing new people every decade, and I think that it just is such a motivating experience for people to know about this award. I actually hadn't heard about it until Annie found this award and told all of my friends, and I know that the reason that I'm here tonight is because you guys found that award and they put together an amazing nomination for me, and it was a huge surprise to get this award, so I thank you guys so much for that. All my friends are over here and my family in these two tables, so I definitely want to take a minute to recognize you guys. It's also great to be back in Minnesota and in St. Peter and at Gustavus. I live in New York City right now. I've been there for the last 6 years. And my husband and I were joking today about how great it is to be in a place with more trees than people. How wonderful the fresh air is and how great it is, and there's not a lot of traffic on the roads, and just how relaxing it also is to come back. One other comment I want to make about my friends, if I look over at those two tables over there, I have my parents here and my husband's here. But I have quite a few friends here, and one of my friends who's here I've known since I was, I think the summer before 7th grade, we met, and we're this close to this day. We went to college together, so we went to separate high schools and went to the same college. And other friends are here. We went to high school together and then came to Gustavus. And other friends I met while I was here, and another friend who didn't come to Gustavus, but we grew so much closer when we were apart at different colleges. And that really leads into what I really feel like Gustavus instilled in me, which is a real sense of community and how important strong relationships are with friends and with family. A really key moment for me was we were here, Jonathan, me and you, during the tornado. And we had to stay off campus for a few weeks and come back and attend school on Saturdays. And I'll never forget the moment coming up the hill on my way back with my mom and with some friends, and how all the alumni were at the top of the hill greeting us and handing us t-shirts, and parents were here and students were here welcoming us and supporting us. And that time had a lot of emotions for us. There was a lot of sadness because there was destruction. We lost some of our buildings. People lost their home and their dorm. But it was also a very important time of rebuilding community and working together, and so many people became so much closer. And that was a very clear moment to me that I think really defines a moment when I look back at Gustavus about what I wanted to do with my life. That experience provided so much support and had such a huge impact on me that I knew that that's how I wanted to spend my life. I wanted to support other people, I wanted to help people overcome difficult times, and I wanted to help people grow. And ever since I was young, I knew that I wanted to go into a service profession where I knew every day that I was helping other people. And here at Gustavus, in addition to those kinds of important experiences, I had an amazing education that's extremely well-rounded. I had to take all kinds of classes in all different areas, and I specialized in psychology and biology. And so I learned that my way of giving service to others was through the field of psychology. And so the Career Center here, I went there a lot. I took those tests on the computer to figure out exactly, what kind of psychology should I go into, and to talk with other people about really helping me identify my specific path. And the psychology department gave me a ton of individualized attention, and it helped me explore what I wanted to do. And my professors, all of my professors in that department, I think really helped me solidify and understand what my talents were. I had opportunities to do independent studies at Regents Hospital and at the U of M over summer, and I studied abroad in England and had the opportunity to join the psychology department at the University of Bristol and work on research teams there. And I know it was the Gustavus reputation that helped me get accepted to a lot of these things, but it also provided me with the skills that I needed to be very successful. After living abroad in South Korea with one of my friends who's here, and going to graduate school in Oregon, I found a passion for working with children and families, and so I decided to become a clinical child psychologist. And as I was learning more about families and relationships and the importance of community for children, I went on to get a postdoc in neuropsychology because I really wanted to understand more about brain development and how the brain works and what were evidence-based treatments to help children overcome, whether it's a developmental disorder, autism, ADHD, learning disabilities, or emotional problems. And how could I really understand the whole child? How could I work with their parents and their teachers in their school and really understand them as an individual and put treatments into place so that they could maximize their potential? And I think a lot about being at Gustavus and all the kids that I work with, and how there are certain kids who people aren't sure if they're going to be able to go to college, if they're going to be able to live independently. And I feel that the work that I'm doing as an advocate for those children gives them a real chance to meet their potential, to maximize their life, and hopefully to go to college one day and maybe even get a scholarship like I did, that I was able to get here, because college can be very expensive sometimes. So I'm very fulfilled in the work that I do, and I really want to thank my parents because I believe that I have a very strong head on my shoulders, and I know that it's because of the two of you. They always guided me and supported and advocated for me, and they taught me to be proud of who I was. And they really helped me identify my career path by helping me know what was genuine for myself and what I was really good at, and to be able to really follow my dreams, to be able to seek what was a real right match for me. And I especially got determination from my mom, who came to the United States from Germany and has such an amazing work ethic and perseverance. And I use those skills here at Gustavus, pulling all-nighters, passing biology exams. But you also encourage me to take risks, like going abroad after college with one of my friends who's here, to teach English in South Korea and to learn about other cultures and other ways of life, which I also think has added greatly to my sense of the world and my sense of child development. And I truly believe that all children, teenagers, and adults need and deserve positive support from people who can bring out their best and people who can help them maximize their lives. And I know that that is what Gustavus also cares about, and that this is the kind of environment that provides that for students coming in every single year. So I'm very grateful for that. And I thank you so much for this award. I will always look back and see it as a very pivotal moment in my life and career. Thank you.
Kirsten and Jonathan, you should be very proud of yourselves. I'm proud to be an alum with you, so well done. Tonight we're going to honor 3 other Gusties with Distinguished Alumni Citations. Distinguished Alumni Citations recognize outstanding and exceptional professional achievement. They're given to a selected group of alumni who have, in the judgment of the Board of Directors and the Alumni Association, carved significant careers in their chosen vocations, and thus have brought honor to the academic program of Gustavus Adolphus College. So the first we'll present is Jack Bergman, and presenting Jack Bergman is the Honorable Brad Walker, class of 1970, Minnesota, District Judge and resident of North Mankato. Judge Walker and Jack have been friends and fellow Marines since their days together on campus. Judge Walker.
think that a lawyer would have all sorts of experience with public speaking, but I'm probably the most nervous one in the room right now. Jack called me up a few weeks ago and asked me to do this, and I felt very honored. I asked him what it was going to be about, and he said, well, it's an award that we're getting, and he's getting, and he asked me to introduce him and talk for 3 minutes. That was the criteria about his qualifications, his experience, and the basis that he's getting this award. And I told him, well, 3 minutes, I don't know that I can do that, that's impossible. So I told him, well, I'll stretch it the best I can. Seriously, I get 2 to 3 minutes, and I really can't do justice in that limited time. As Jeff said, I met Jack really not as a Gusty student, but as a Marine officer candidate. We went through training in Quantico, Virginia. We were kids in the grand scheme of things, and the training mostly involved physical work, military skills training, and the like. For you civilian folks, that's a euphemism for getting yelled at 22 hours a day by the drill instructor. But our instructors were evaluating every one of us, 24/7, to see who'd be a good Marine officer. And these qualities they recognized in Jack Bergman: leadership, perseverance, attention to detail, common sense, and that's what brings us here today. Most civilians have no clue as to what Jack has sacrificed to pursue a military career. Time away from family, maybe missing a daughter's first steps, countless little league games, soccer games, dance recitals, in the case of reserves, juggling civilian employment and military career. I spent 3 years after Gustavus in law school, and while I was enjoying life and goofing off up at the U of M, Jack was flying support helicopters in Vietnam. Day and night, he was flying missions in support of young combat Marines on the ground, bringing them food, supplies, ammunition, evacuating wounded Marines and soldiers at the risk of his own safety, getting those injured men back to a field hospital and saving lives. That service alone should qualify him for any award this body could choose to give. He continued his military career in many billets. I won't detail them all. I think he'll give you a short biography. I just want to make it clear to you that as he progressed through the ranks, he was always being evaluated and recognized for his skills and his leadership, his ability to mentor younger Marine officers and the other Marines he commanded. As commander eventually of the Marine Forces Reserve, he earned the respect of his staff and the 100,000 Marines that he commanded and was responsible for training and readiness. 3 stars. I just want to give you a little background. I majored here some 40 years ago in mathematics, so please bear with me with a few statistics. The officer structure in the Marine Corps Reserve is a pretty steep pyramid. Promotions are by merit after a very rigorous evaluation process. The Corps, in our case, may start out with a couple of thousand officer candidates who want to become second lieutenants. As we progress through the ranks, captain, major, colonel, etc., the pool gets dramatically smaller, and of that several thousand, maybe one gets selected as a brigadier, 1-star general officer. As Jack progressed even further, he was awarded a 2nd and then a 3rd star. You don't achieve the success that he's achieved by being a wallflower, so humble probably isn't a word to describe Jack. Cindy, does that fit there?
I agree.
All right. But I'm sure he won't blow his own horn from this podium. His service record includes a Distinguished Service Medal, Single Mission Air Medal, Combat V Air Medal, and Joint Meritorious Service Award. These aren't just I was there medals. I wish I had the opportunity to recite the citations he received when he was given these awards. It's probably long overdue that, as Jeff said, this is the inaugural award in military service, so it's long overdue. I'm very proud to be part of this ceremony. I'm proud to call Jack a friend, honored to call him general. Jack, when they did the first one, they got it right. Jeff, I present Lieutenant Jack Bergman for Distinguished Alumni Citation in the field of military service.
What do you say when someone you admire very much has already touched your heart in such a way? So, as Tom Hanks said in the baseball movie, there's no crying in baseball. So, we'll get to the heart of the matter right away. Last time I spoke to a group like this, I had just been elected social chairman of the Reds. How many Reds we got in the crowd here? Any? I'm a fraternity of one today. Well, they're probably at the bar. Second time I talked to a crowd like this was when we honored C. Sekhoff back in 93, 94, that time frame, and stood up and said a few things about him, and all with the truth, by the way, which those of you who knew Cease knew you couldn't expand too much about what he meant to Gustavus. I came off the podium, and in only a way Cease could, sitting right there, he said, "A little over the top." So I'll try not to be a little over the top today, Cease. I'm sure you're listening somewhere, so I'll try to get to the meat. Thank you to my family, all 5 tables, most of whom drove from Savage or the cities. That's where we've been for 150 years or so. Love you all. Within the family, we have a couple of Gusty grads. We have Rich Johnson, who married my cousin Holly, played basketball here, graduated in 1997, and Nick Dwyer, who graduated from Gustavus in 02 and played football and baseball while he was here. And my immediate family, my wife Cindy, my sister Dawn, my daughter Molly, her husband Eric, and the 3 grandchildren, AJ, Ty, and Maya, who drove in from Chicago. So without naming the rest of the names, I love you all again. I'm glad you're here. Judge Walker, Brad, thank you so much for honoring me with your introduction. Proud to know you as a friend and a Marine. Always have been, always will. Gustavus and the Alumni Association, I am honored, humbly so, to accept this on behalf of all the men and women of Gusty origins who have served and who are serving in the United States military. Let's talk a little bit about service. Brad talked about being a mathematician. Well, and a statistician and other folks and know about bell curves. I would suggest to you that if you took the bell curve of service, and in this case possibly federal service, to use as a starting point, you could put the Peace Corps on one end and the Marine Corps on the other end, and somewhere between that left and right lateral limit, all service organizations would fit. And one of the things Gustavus taught me early on, as we've heard already talked about here this evening, was that take your personal service pin, whatever it is you envision at that point in your life, and stick it somewhere in that bell curve. The world would be better and you'll be better for doing that. So let's look at what a young Marine captain back in the early 1970s, this is what it looks like today from 40 years back. But today's young Marine officer looks much like, and I'd like you to stand up, Captain Aldean. This is Captain Jacob Aldean, who lives in Minneapolis, has been a Marine for well over a decade, has multiple tours in Iraq and around the world, a father, a husband, a leader, and the kind of person that you want to be your friend. Okay? You want him to be your neighbor. You want him to be the person who looks after things when you're gone. And as we say in the Marine Corps, he will be your best friend. There will be no better friend. But if you are not the kind of person or entity that lives up to the values that a community sets, he will be your worst enemy. Okay? Now that's a quote from General Jim Mattis, who's currently CENTCOM, and the bottom line is, we believe, like Gustavus believes as Marines, that our core values of honor, courage, and that courage is not only physical courage, it's moral courage, to know you're always going to do the right thing, even if nobody's watching, that's what we expect from our men and women who wear the cloth. So I'd like you, if you would be willing to at this point, give a round of applause to all the men and women serving today. Each student takes their individual path through Gustavus. I certainly did. In fact, in the mid-'80s, then President Gustavus, John Kendall, visited us in Chicago in an alumni reunion. And he'd come back here as a professor in 1968 timeframe, and I had him for experimental psychology class. So we got to know each other right away. I was kind of at the end of my tenure, and he was at the beginning of his as a professor. And the first thing he said to me when he saw me these 15 years later, "So, have they domesticated you yet?" I said, "Well, President Kendall, I'm not sure what that means. I never was very good with those long, many-syllable words, but his comment maybe gave you an idea how my path through Gustavus might have been viewed by some of the faculty. Let me tell you about a few professors that infected me while I was here in a very positive way with the kind of passion and enthusiasm and caring that happens at the college level, that is different at the high school level and different at the elementary level, because the student receiving that instruction and receiving that guidance receives things in different ways at different times in their life. And while I don't know how appreciative I was at the time of their teaching and mentoring, I definitely over the course of years have gained greater appreciation for their styles and how they got the point across. H. Milton Anderson was my advisor. I started here as a math major, ended up as a business major. H. Milton always had time to sit down and talk. Always. I don't care what was going on in his life. He always had time. Reverend Claire Johnson. Never had him for a class. But I spent more time talking to him at baseball practice, after a baseball game, whatever. He was always out there to interact. Chaplain Elvey. He was as insatiably curious as the rest of us here at the time. And he was a classic of being able to be one of us in the canteen, but then as the chaplain of the college, when he stood behind the lectern, behind the pulpit in the chapel, he became the chaplain. And finally, Dr. Ellis Jones. Some of the best classes and some of the most enthusiastic interpretation of material I got from Dr. Ellis Jones. Is he here today? Right. Where are you? Dr. Jones, I was hoping you would be here. Today, there are two classes that I had here at Gustavus that I utilize every day. Marriage and family. Need I say more? And business letter writing. That course, honest, I have used that every day of my life, and I thank you, Dr. Jones, for what you gave me back then. You were right, it works, and you can tell someone no and have them love you. Let's talk a moment about leadership. Theodore Roosevelt had a quote about daring greatly, and I'm not going to quote it to you, but simply say that those who make the effort every day, those who fail every day and end up succeeding, it's because they were willing to accept each small day of those setbacks in order to get those 2 steps forward. He was a military leader. He was an environmentalist, obviously a president. The Marine Corps, simple credo for how we believe and how we act. Service before self. We take care of the Marine on our right and our left. We never quit, and we always accomplish the mission. 2 examples of your Gusties that are serving today. I'd like to tell you just a quick second about Corporal Mark Iverson, class of '06. Played football here at Gustavus, majored in sociology and anthropology, minored in music and religion. Just finished his 4-year stint at Marine Barracks 8th and I because he entered the Marine Corps as a musician. Played in the Drum and Bugle Corps, and he is now awaiting his acceptance as an officer candidate in the Marine Corps, and will return back to active duty here very shortly. But Mark's a spectacular individual as a Gustie. I'm sure a lot of you know him. He's what it's all about. Tomorrow, you're going to graduate a young man here by the name of Wes Jones. Wes Jones is a boatswain's mate, 2nd class in the Coast Guard Reserve. Last year, he was the Coast Guard Enlisted Man of the Reserve of the Year for the Great Lakes region. And Wes came here. By the way, he came here when he toured schools. He was with his mom and dad. He went to another school that started with a St. O, and then he came here, and he knew when he left here where he was coming to school. He swam here at Gustavus for 4 years. He also is awaiting the results of the OCS board to become an ensign in the Coast Guard. So Wes is just a spectacular young man, and he will do well as he serves the country in his future with the Coast Guard. Now, in Wes's words, these are yesterday, he summed it up better than I could ever have. And he talked about the time between Gustavus and the military. He said, Gustavus and the military are small in numbers. They are both cultures of service. They both have defined values. They allow an individual to be part of something greater than themselves, and they develop leaders who learn to listen before they act. So that's what you have graduating tomorrow here in the class of 2011, one of them. And I know there are many more from what I've already heard today. Again, I humbly accept this award on behalf of all the military members. And remember, Monday is Memorial Day. And I would like to conclude by reading a poem that came via BlackBerry yesterday afternoon out of nowhere from a dear friend of mine, and it's written by his father, who is 92 and is a World War II Iwo Jima veteran. And this is his poem for Memorial Day. Is that him calling? You know, we have a rule in the military, if your phone goes off, you buy the next round at the bar. I'll wait till it's done ringing, then I'll start. Okay, you okay? All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. The BlackBerry doesn't fail me. Memorial Day 2011. Today, 1,000,000 flags appear on the grave sites far and grave sites near. They decorate the resting places of those who died with scarce any traces. We flew the planes over Germany, sailed our ships in the Coral Sea, attacked the hedges at Saint-Lô, clawed up bloody sands of Iwo. All this we did and died for you, that liberty would continue. That America would always be the home of the brave and the land of the free. We flew, we sailed, we attacked and clawed, Despite all odds, we never awed. For God and country, we were there when dangers lingered everywhere. Remember us who died for you, that liberty would continue. Irv Justman, 92. So, God bless you all. God bless America. Thank you.
Distinguished alumni, I guess. Thank you very much. Robert Brown will be introduced by his sister Katie Brown Sayre, class of 1980. Katie resides in Eden Prairie and is Senior Vice President, Health Plan Operations and Government Programs for Health Partners. Katie?
We all love watching movies about people overcoming the odds to accomplish great things. I always wait in the darkness of the theater to read the postscript, to see what happened, to learn the rest of the story. It is such an honor to be here today introducing my brother, Dr. Robert Brown, as the recipient of the Distinguished Alumni Citation in the field of medicine. Because for me, this is a real-life, perfect, full-circle story. It's the story of Bob, a remarkable person who never looked back after a sudden illness left him paralyzed at the age of 13 on a June night. It is the story of Bob using his many gifts, his constant positive attitude, and his unwavering work ethic to make the most of his life and give back so much to his patients, his colleagues, and to science. It is also the story of Gustavus and the remarkable foresight of this college. When as a junior, I approached President Ed Lindell about my brother attending Gustavus, this community immediately embraced the possibilities rather than the barriers and focused on solutions rather than problems. Gustavus saw my brother's potential. Bob embraced the opportunity and he thrived. Bob graduated from Gustavus in 1983 with majors in chemistry and biology. Like most Gusties, he made the most of his time on this hill. Bob's medical training and career has flourished at the Mayo Clinic, first at the Mayo Medical School, and later in his neurology residency and cerebrovascular disease and stroke fellowship. Bob honed his research skills by completing his Master's of Public Health in Epidemiology at the University of Minnesota. With these superb academic credentials, Bob has gone on to an extraordinary medical career spanning the dimensions of administration, research, medical education, and patient care. Bob has served in many important administrative and leadership roles at Mayo Clinic since he joined the staff in 1987. He has been recognized for his leadership and excellence at every step of his career. Since 2006, he has served as chair of the nationally renowned Mayo Clinic Department of Neurology. Bob is a prolific researcher in the field of cerebrovascular disease, particularly stroke and intracranial aneurysms. Bob has collaborated and led extensive national and international research studies in these areas. I can't do justice to his research work other than to observe that the bibliography of his contributions is over 40 pages long. He is named on over 160 full-length, peer-reviewed scientific articles. Bob has co-authored 4 textbooks on stroke and cerebrovascular disease, including the definitive Handbook on Stroke. Bob has touched literally thousands of physicians as an educator and mentor. He served for many years as director of the Mayo Neurology Residency. He is a professor of neurology at the Mayo Clinic College of Medicine. He's generous with his time as a national and international presenter of continuing medical education, sharing his expertise with other physicians so that they can better care for their patients. Last year, Bob received the highest academic honor at Mayo Clinic as the recipient of the John and Lillian Matthews Named Professorship of Neuroscience. Knowing my brother, the area that means the most to him is the work he has done directly caring for his patients. Bob has always had an active clinical practice and continues to see patients in the clinic and hospital. He touches his patients with his empathy, his clear communication, and his superb clinical excellence and expertise. A highlight of Bob's career was when he was awarded Mayo's highest clinical honor, the Distinguished Clinician Award in 2004, and then the Individual Award for Excellence in 2005. In addition to these extraordinary professional accomplishments, Bob and his wonderful wife Julie are great people. They love spending time with family and friends. They are humble, interested, and giving people. They always have time for a game of cribbage with the kids, a text message on the latest Twins game, or a play date with our golden retrievers. It is with deep pride and love for my brother and tremendous gratitude for Gustavus that I present Dr. Robert D. Brown Jr. for this distinguished alumni citation in the field of medicine.
Well, good evening, and it's certainly my pleasure to be here with you tonight, and it's my honor to have been the recipient of this award. I can't thank the Gustavus Alumni Association enough for recognizing me in this way. It's actually a very special night, in particular because of the family who's here with me tonight. My wife, Gustavus grad, Julie, my wife of 27 years, my sister, Katie, my dear mother, who's there at the table as well, my niece and nephew, David, Carolyn, and David's long-term girlfriend, Maggie Wade, all here with us tonight. I must say I've been particularly fortunate over the course of time to have had a remarkable combination of people and environment that have allowed me to succeed over the decades. And by that I mean people. Friends, dear friends over the course of time who have been a source of tremendous support over the course of time, and environment. Every setting in which I have had the opportunity to live or to pursue an academic pursuit, I've had just the right environment in terms of opportunities for academics and academic excellence. But going back to the people, the mentorship that's been provided to me over the course of time has been truly remarkable, and that was no different from my time here at Gustavus, where I enjoyed those qualities of people and environment at such a high level. But how did I end up here at Gustavus in the first place? Well, my sister, you might have wondered, why did he have his sister introduce him? Well, it definitely does come full circle, because without my sister and her aggressive pursuit of asking Gustavus to make some changes in their infrastructure to allow me to attend Gustavus, it's unclear where I would have gone to college. It's unclear what my long-term academic pursuit may have been. It may have been medicine, it may not have been. It may have been something completely different, but suffice to say, a great debt of gratitude to Katie for allowing me the opportunity to come to Gustavus. So I so appreciate her kind introduction. But coming back to Gustavus, and in the 4 years that I had the opportunity to spend on the campus, as I mentioned a moment ago, it was truly a combination of, just the perfect combination of people and environment. It was here that I really got to understand academic excellence, and whether it be Dr. Grover, who was my physical chemistry teacher, extremely detail-oriented man who expected excellence from his students, and if you delivered, he was the first to pat you on the back and indicate that it was a job well done. Dr. Langshan in organic chemistry, Dr. Splitgerber in physics, and on I could go. It was a combination of people who had very high expectations, but one learned at that very impressionable age what academic excellence meant, detail, or I should say attention to detail, as well as a pursuit of opportunities that were presented to you academically that I learned from all of those professors. I would also say that it was an optimal environment because it was never a competition against one's classmates here. It was always a competition against the coursework. against the material to learn. And that was a perfect environment for me to hone some of my early scientific skills and general liberal arts skills as a student here. But Gustavus was so much more, though, than the academic issues I just mentioned to you, and it was really all about the people, the friends that I met here at Gustavus who remain friends through to the current time, the people, meaning the professors, the mentorship that they provided, and perhaps most importantly, the quirk of fate that led to me having the then Julie Olson as my general chemistry lab partner. It's more romantic than it sounds now. But nonetheless, there are some people, some of our close friends who contend it was the smell of the Bunsen burner or the aroma wafting into the air that in some way, shape, or form clouded her judgment and led to her accepting my offer of a first date back in our freshman year of Gustavus. But we subsequently dated for several years afterwards, and after my first year of medical school, we got married, and it's been truly a phenomenal 27 years since then. Now, I'm not going to belabor the years that followed Gustavus, but suffice it to say the respect that Gustavus garnered in the medical community led to me being accepted at the Dream Medical School, Mayo Medical School. The Dream Medical School because it was the smallest medical school in the country, 40 students per year with that same perfect combination of people and environment, remarkable mentors. And what my sister discussed in terms of my academic accomplishments is solely a testament to the remarkable mentorship that I had during my medical school training, residency fellowship, and beyond. Fantastic colleagues and mentors that have allowed some of those things to happen. Now, what I would also state as I finish up, the constant behind all of this, though, has been my family. My wife of 27 years, fantastic person and my best friend. My dear sister, who I've learned so much from over the course of time. My niece and nephew, David and Carolyn. And my father, who unfortunately passed away, 22 years ago this week, but who I learned so much from and who contributes so mightily to everything that I, what should I say, pursue day in and day out, both academically and personally. And then finally, my dear mother, who's here tonight. What would one say? Kindness, compassion, empathy, work ethic, just some of the many, many qualities that and traits that I owe to my mother, as does my sister, niece, and nephew who are here tonight. So for my dear 87-year-old mother, thank you so very much, and this honor goes to you just as much as it does to me. So I'm going to finish tonight again thanking you for recognizing me in this way. It's delighted to be here with you tonight, and thank you all very, very much.
And for our third distinguished alumni citation, Emeritus Professor Dr. John Mackay will present Mark Thompson.
Good evening. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce Mark Thompson. Many of you may be asking, what does an operatic tenor do? It sounds glamorous, but somewhat remote, otherworldly, artistic. I was going to add non-Scandinavian, except that would rule out Jussi Björling, so that's not going to work. All right, what does this profession require? Well, first of all, the voice. A beautiful, powerful, and flexible voice. I'm going to go back a few years. Mark doesn't need me to add anything to the many accolades that he has received from the press and from the public worldwide. But I would like to say that when I arrived at Gustavus in 1976 to teach piano, Mark was going into his junior year. And Mark was studying voice in the studio next to the one in which I was teaching piano. Now, the rooms were, and still are, well insulated acoustically, but nevertheless, when Mark went in for a lesson and I was teaching piano, I would say to the student, stop. Let us listen to this voice, which in a few years we are going to be paying big bucks to hear. So we did. We would stop and we would listen to Mark, whatever he was doing, whether it was scales or vocalises or an aria from an opera or whatever. And it wasn't long after that then that my wife and I were in fact paying big bucks to hear Mark at the Ordway, singing the role of Don Ottavio and Don Giovanni, and singing in The Elixir of Love. Now, another thing, these days, to put it bluntly, good looks and acting are musts in the world of opera. This was not always the case. And if you think that opera singers still look like a male or female version of the Michelin Man, then you have not been near an opera house lately, nor have you seen the video casts from the Met. Gentlemen, I would suggest that you check out Renee Fleming or Anna Netrebko. Ladies, try to catch Thomas Hampson, Nathan Gunn, or Mark Thompson. Also, no longer do singers simply stand and sing. Mark is a superb singing actor and has, for instance, shown the world what a sympathetic character Don Ottavio in Mozart's Don Giovanni can be. Don Ottavio is frequently thought of as a weak character, perhaps somewhat unsympathetic. I have seen Mark's Don Ottavio at the Ordway, and Mark has brought something to that role that turned even the perception of that role around. Needless to say, another element of a career in the world of opera is extensive musical and dramatic training. Mark's career began here at Gustavus, followed by a 2-year apprenticeship with the Minnesota Opera. I remember seeing him as a walk-on in La Boheme. You know the term first spear carrier? Well, there aren't spears in La Boheme, but it was something like that. A master's degree from Eastman School of Music, my alma mater also. 3 years with the Houston Opera, and then Mark started freelancing and was hired by Houston, spent many summers at the Santa Fe Opera, and it was at that time that Mark's career began to take him abroad, and he sang both at the Staatsoper and the Volksoper in Vienna and has toured extensively. After 1 year in New York, Mark was awarded the New York City Opera Debut Artist of the Year Award. Twice won Mark the Pavarotti Award at the Metropolitan Opera's National Council auditions. Not only must singers have prodigious memories, but they must also sing in at least Italian, German, French, and of course English. Now, not too long ago, Roland used this wonderful word, polyglot. All right? So, operatic singers must be polyglots in the role they sing, in the roles they sing, because operas now are always given in the original language. This was not always the case, but now they are always given in the original language. So those 4 languages are a must, but not that long ago, a couple of decades ago, Russian operas, sung in Russian, entered the repertory, as did Czech operas. So that involved mastery of 2 new languages. And not only must one know the words to the role and the arias and the recitatives and so forth and so on, but one must be able to speak the languages fluently, because an operatic career nowadays involves international travel, and staying for several months in Milan, for instance, because the new production of whatever it is has to be rehearsed and then performed over a period of several weeks, and one has to cope with the society that one finds oneself in. Mark is renowned throughout the world for his interpretations of Mozart's Italian and German operas, as well as for the standard French roles such as Faust, Don José, and Des Grieux, 19th century operas, 19th century Italian roles such as Pinkerton and Cavaradossi, and German roles such as Flamand in Strauss' Capriccio. Mark has even sung the role of Lenski in Tchaikovsky's Eugene Onegin in Russian. Finally, something which Mark has in abundance, as attributed by many glowing reviews and audiences' accolades, and that is charisma, stage charisma. And that is the icing on the cake of all of the other attributes, all of the other many years of study, of memorization, of the study of languages, of the study of stage fighting, stage combat, so forth, all of these things. 2 seasons ago, Mark substituted for ailing tenor Neil Shikoff on opening night of the season at the Chicago Lyric Opera. Mark sang Don José opposite the Carmen of Denise Graves. Let me read you just a brief excerpts of some of the reviews. And he gets to sing beautifully in Thompson's case, particularly in Act Two's Flower Song. Thompson is also young enough to play the role effectively and handsome enough to account for why Carmen, the tempestuous gypsy, singles him out for her attentions in Act 1. Another review. Credit for saving opening night went to Thompson. When a large bouquet came flying over the orchestra pit at curtain calls, Denise Graves picked it up, extracted one red rose, and presented it to the tenor. It was an echo of the action in Act 1, but it was also a way of saying thank you. Another review. Because Shikoff bowed out, Denise Graves acquired the tall, good-looking, and vocally capable new José in the person of Mark Thompson. With him in place, we got some real fire in an opera that requires dramatic commitment from all its participants. For more information about Mark's career, go to Mark's website, markthompson.com. But please remember, it's Thomsen, markthompson.com. Mark has brought great distinction to himself, his alma mater, and his profession. Jeff, I present Mark Thompson for a distinguished alumni citation in the field of music.
This portion of our program is brought to you by Bella Amorosa Pizza, a pizza of romance. It comes with sausage and extra cheese and pepperoni, if you please. It'll knock your socks off and your pants. It is the pizza of in Las Vegas these days. My wife and I, also a graduate of '78, and before I get too much further into that, I'd like to thank Garrison Keillor for that Bella Amorosa pizza commercial. And my wife has been fantastic during our 30-year marriage, but we met here at Gustavus, and the continuing echo of community, family, Minnesota, and the fantastic achievements that all of these people have done, I can't believe I'm in this kind of company. I'm honored to be part of this company. I'm honored to be in your company. And I just want us all just to take a moment and just feel it. Just feel that electricity, that inner glow that permeates each class. Because we all strive. We all are out there doing it. You know, I remember my mom, who's here with us today. And she was always saying to me as I was growing up, she said, go outside and play. Don't sit in here and look glum. Just go. Well, I went out and I played. I had a good time. I learned a lot. That's Gustavus. You come here, walking down the sidewalk, and still today, I walked on the sidewalk, someone gave me a smile. I couldn't help but smile back. When I came here as a freshman, people were saying, oh yes, do it, go. That was as a freshman. Go out there and try and do. Then as a sophomore was, go out there and do it. Then a junior, go and get it done. A senior, will you go already? Get out into life and experience it and do it. We're thinkers and doers. We don't just sit on our butts. We do from time to time to have some coffee or a beer or to go fishing or something like that, but that's just to regenerate our batteries and get out there. And that's part of what you bring and brought to me, Dr. Mackay, and your lovely wife Sally as well, and the whole music department. I came here playing football as a sociology major, and as a sophomore, ended up changing my major to music as a result of faculty people like that who encouraged me to go out and do. That's what it's about. It's to get out there and do it and experience life. One of the things I really like about performing is that in live performance, it's happening right now. A recording cannot capture that. It cannot capture what happens within an audience between a performer and those audience members. It's something special and unique to it. So we have each of these moments throughout our entire lives to make it happen. So I'd like to share for you as my final thank you, an aria from Carmen, La Fleur que tu m'avais jetée. If Maestro Mackay, if you don't mind, he's complaining a little bit because it's in D flat. But we have an arrangement. If he hits a wrong note, I have to go with it. Also, if anybody feels like dancing, try to wait till later. This is a typical story of boy meets girl, gets in trouble with girl because he does something illegal, he gets thrown into prison, he comes back and he tells the girl he really loves her and she dumps him. So this is La Fleur que tu m'avais jetée. Oh, let me get that.
You will understand why I'm putting the lid on.
I've just come back from being in prison. And Carmen is toying with me, Don Jose.
La fleur que tu m'avais jetée
liberal arts education will do for you. Are you proud to be a Gustie yet? You're in good company. We have one more that'll make you proud as well. The Greater Gustavus Award is the highest award given by the Alumni Association. It's awarded to those who by deed have notably advanced and aided Gustavus Adolphus College. Our Greater Gustavus Award recipient, Walter Youngquist, is at home in Eugene, Oregon, recovering from open heart surgery, but longtime friend Al Henderson, class of '62, will present Walter for his award and read Walter's response for us. Al's retired senior portfolio manager for Ameriprise Financial Services and gives back to Gustavus by being on the board of trustees. Al, could you please come up?
Well, hello everyone. It's a real privilege to be here. I never thought as a kid in Moose Lake I'd ever be with such an austere group. Looking at the wall here and the class reunions of everything, I noticed 11 up there, and 1911 is when Selma Knock Youngquist, Walter's mother, graduated from Gustavus, so it would have been her 100th anniversary here. Walter is a truly remarkable and brilliant person and mentor for me. It has been a real privilege to get to know Walter and share many experiences. One of the things that we did is we took off from Vancouver Island in a canoe, went across the straits there to the British Columbia coast and up the coast to up Lochborough Inlet and back. Covered over 136 miles. If anyone ever wants to go on an adventurous canoe trip, I recommend you go with Walter. He knows a lot. The Greater Gustavus Award recognizes those who by deed have notably advanced and aided Gustavus Adolphus College. So what did Walter ever do? Walter has advanced Gustavus through a very successful career as a geologist and by giving generously to Gustavus, including 5 separate endowment funds. These gifts help make Gustavus accessible to many students. Although Walter L. Youngquist, class of 1942, is being honored today with the Greater Gustavus Award, we must start with Walter's father, Walter R., class of 1916, also a recipient of the Greater Gustavus Award in 1953. As a college board of trustee member, Walter R. insisted on strengthening the geology department. Dr. Chester Johnson was selected as a new faculty member in 1940. At the time, Walter L. was a student. Walt showed a special interest in geology and soon became a student assistant to Chester, accompanying him on local geological trips. After graduation in 1942, as the first Gustavian ever to select geology as a profession, Walter enrolled in the geology department at the University of Iowa, where he completed a Master's of Science degree, and after serving in the Navy, a PhD. In 1948, he joined the geology department at the University of Idaho, and after several years of teaching, joined what's now Exxon Corp as an exploration geologist, ultimately returning to education as a professor of geology and the head of the geology department at the University of Oregon. While at Oregon, Walter was also a consultant geologist, serving ExxonMobil and a number of other oil companies, including Shell, Belco, Amoco, and Sun Oil. For a time, he was also a consultant in geothermal exploration to the Eugene, Oregon Water and Electric Board. When he had that position, I learned a little bit about what it's like to be a field geologist, and he took me with him out through the desert in Oregon and went to a place that he made sound like a wonderful resort, Mickey Hot Springs. And when we went out there, all there was bumble brush. We went driving cross country and over old dried up lake beds, and we'd hear the coyotes all over. And when we got to Mickey Hot Springs, there was a hot springs there, and there's a little stream by it that we dammed up, and then we shuffled water off of the hot springs into the little stream we dammed and had a little bathtub. We did a lot of strange things. Anyway, he has given hundreds of lectures to and has traveled to more than 70 countries, written over 100 scientific papers and articles, and authored 10 books. One of the books he wrote is easy reading for people like us. He wrote Over the Hill and Down the Creek is a book for the general reader, which includes autobiographical notes and stories of his adventures in the field, as well as those of many other geologists. When the book came out, we got it for like $10, and I looked at Amazon before coming here, and the bids on the book now start at $180 on Amazon.com, so that's a marvelous compliment to Walter that people enjoy it that much. He also wrote more serious books, like his Investing in Natural Resources was published by the Wall Street Journal. Geodestinies, The Inevitable Control of Earth Resources Over Nations and Individuals is an outstanding book that not only covers the oil and energy industry and normal geology things, but he knows a great deal of Renaissance man, where it covers a lot of things like the political organizations and other fields that... Anyway, by writing the book, he won the 2000 Journalism Award of the American Association of Petroleum Geologists, the world's largest geological society. Walt is also a fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science and of the Geological Society of America, and there's a long list of organizations and other memberships that he has. For his accomplished career, Walt was awarded the Distinguished Alumni Citation in the field of geology here in 2002. Walter's alma mater has honored his career, but today we honor his philanthropy and advancement of the college. Youngquist is responsible for 5 different endowed funds at Gustavus, which provide scholarship resources for students and research, field study resources for students, and faculty in geology. Including his lifetime contributions and recent scholarship and endowment philanthropy, Walter ranks 3rd in the total amount of giving by an individual to Gustavus Adolphus College. The 5 scholarships and endowments he has funded are all named in honor of people who have personally touched Walter in his life, and they include his first scholarships were for former Gustavus professor Chester Johnson and Walter Youngquist Geology Student Research Field Study Endowment Fund, and second, the Chester Johnson Geology Scholarship Endowment Fund. For his wife, Elizabeth Person, Youngquist, class of 1942, the Elizabeth Pearson Youngquist Music Scholarship Endowment Fund for students focusing on piano, cello, or organ. The Elizabeth Person Endowed Music Scholarship assists 15 or more Josie Beerling Scholarship recipients each year. The scholarships are the primary financial aid grants recognizing and encouraging musical excellence and are awarded annually on the basis of auditions and interviews to selected high school seniors. And the Bjorling scholarships are renewable each year. A student musician qualifies and continues participation in music ensembles and lessons. This scholarship endowment was initiated with a contribution of $1 million. All of his scholarship funds are generously endowed. Then, in 2007, for his son, Robert Eric Youngquist, the Memorial Scholarship Endowment was established for students who have overcome physical or mental handicap to be successful at Gustavus. And he set up the Walter R. Youngquist Memorial Scholarship Endowment Fund to provide students with financial need, taking into consideration the qualities of dependability, persistence, and stability in personally adverse circumstances in 2007. Jeff, for a lifetime of generosity and establishment of 5 endowments that provide financial support of students and student faculty research, I present Walter L. Youngquist, class of 1942, for the Greater Gustavus Award. Now I am being Walter Youngquist. I am honored and touched to be this year's recipient of the Greater Gustavus Award. Regrettably, I am unable to join you for this occasion as I recently had open heart surgery. Do not try this at home. Involving a triple bypass and a new aortic valve borrowed from a calf. It is a drastic procedure that precludes me from traveling at the moment, but my good and longtime friend Alfred Henderson, a current member of the Gustavus Board of Trustees, has kindly stepped in for me to convey these few thoughts to you. Greater Gustavus means a variety of things to various people, but this concept must always center on the students for whom Gustavus exists. To me, it has meant a personal touch from which I have benefited all my life in myriad ways and passed it on, in turn making a positive effect on the lives of my students. It all started when Chester Johnson came to Gustavus my sophomore year to teach geology, and I took the course. Chester was a marvelous professor. I was enthralled with geology, deciding then to be a geologist. Chester took a deep personal interest in my future and encouraged me to go on to graduate school, recommending me by letter to the University of Iowa, where I was duly admitted. Without Chester's personal touch, I would not have gone on. I completed graduate work through the PhD level and initially became assistant professor of geology at the University of Idaho. But after 3 years with total savings of $80, it became clear that a job offered by what was then the Standard Oil Company of New Jersey and now is ExxonMobil Corporation offered a better future and twice the salary than did the University of Idaho. I took the offer and shortly found myself in Peru, finding locations for 11 oil drilling rigs. Working for the world's largest oil company was a vigorous experience, and I learned a great deal very fast about the oil industry that produces a vital worldwide traded commodity from many sources. But life in Peru was not for the long term, and when I was offered a position at the University of Oregon, I accepted. There, Now, having a background in the oil industry, I requested the dean to let me offer a course in petroleum geology. I was on good terms with the dean, and he humored me and consented. Located in a state widely known as the industry as oilless Oregon, this was something of an accomplishment. Petroleum geology now became an offering I could teach in a small course where I could give to my students the personal touch Chester Johnson had given to me. Having contacts in Exxon, I found jobs for my students, one of whom, Arthur Green, starting at the bottom professional rung, rose over the years to become the chief geoscientist of ExxonMobil, probably the top geology job in the world. I quote from a letter from him, "Walter, your personal touch in mentoring me while your student opened the door ultimately to the position I now hold. I am profoundly grateful." Signed, Arthur Green, Chief Geoscientist of ExxonMobil. Arthur is now retired, but I continue to hear from him expressing gratitude for my personal touch in his successful career, which all goes back to the personal touch I received at Gustavus. In effect, Chester Johnson provided the world's largest oil company with its chief geoscientist. This personal touch has been multiplied many times for my students who will never know where it started. In an ever more crowded world, the personal touch tends to be lost, but I hope it can always be retained at Gustavus and that students can carry it forward throughout their lives as they touch others. That to me has been the greatness of Gustavus. In turn, for launching me to a modicum of financial success as a professional geologist, I am pleased to return something in the form of scholarship funds, one named in honor of Chester Johnson, whose personal touch to me was the catalyst for it all. Walter Youngquist, Gustavus, class of '42.
Thanks, Al, for honoring Walter and for playing the part of Al and the part of Walter. Really appreciate that. So at commencement tomorrow afternoon, President Jack Oley is going to personally congratulate and shake the hands of every graduate. Imagine for a minute, 10 years from now, or 20 years from now, or 40 years from now, an event like this, and what we're going to hear about what some of those new alum are going to accomplish in this world. President Oley, we thank you and Chris for all that you give for the college. I'd like to invite you up to share some comments, and while you're coming up, acknowledge please Chris for what she gives for our college.
Thank you, Jeff. What an evening. I'm sitting there thinking about Gustavus Adolphus College, and the words that came to your mind, I'm sure, are some of those that were spoken from this podium. Words such as Jeff saying, "Isn't it great to be a liberal arts college?" Think of what we heard this evening. The array of talent and experience, the opportunity to touch human lives, the opportunity to make a difference in this world, and yes, to make your life count. These men and women that we have honored today are individuals that represent all that is good about a Gustavus Adolphus education. We're in the process of pulling stories together for the celebration of our 150th anniversary. We're calling them Gusty stories. We have more stories now for our group of stories that we will be sharing throughout the year. And I want to thank each of them that were here. Phil, I want to start by thanking you. When you said you want a chance to get behind the wheel, I think you can see you've got a job ahead of you. All we have to think about are these men and women that are out 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 30 or 40 or 50 years ago, and how they have touched the lives of people that have been part of their life. Phil, you will do the same. And so when Jeff said, maybe 10 years from now, maybe 20 or 30 years from now,